The late afternoon was usually the quietest time in our huge suburban home, a moment of dull, boring calm. But that silence was violently shattered by a high-pitched, desperate scream that sliced through the air like breaking glass. My heart immediately leaped into my throat. I rushed quickly down the polished oak hallway toward the sound, which led directly to the master bedroom suite. I found my stepmother, Annette, standing in the very middle of her massive, walk-in closet. The room was perfectly organized, lined with expensive, unused shoes and designer bags. But in the center, Annette's hands were clasped together tightly, completely empty. Her face was dramatically twisted into a mask of total despair, ready to burst into loud, noisy tears. My emerald necklace. My beautiful, expensive heirloom. It's completely gone. It has vanished from the safe, she cried out loudly, her voice trembling with what seemed like genuine panic. Before I could even open my mouth to offer any kind of help or ask a question, she spun around quickly, her fingers shooting out and pointing directly and aggressively at me, like a snake striking. You, Linda, you are the only person outside of Robert who knew the secret code to the safe. You have always been so jealous of my precious things. You must have taken it this morning. The pure shock of her immediate, cruel accusation hit me hard, feeling heavy and cold. I stood frozen, totally unable to speak, as the heavy weight of her terrible judgment pressed down on my shoulders. I couldn't believe how quickly she had jumped to such a terrible, baseless conclusion, and how confidently she made her voice tremble with false emotion. My father, Robert, had been working in his home office, but he rushed out, drawn by Annette's loud, frantic commotion, and he stood still and completely frozen in the doorway, observing the awful scene. Annette, sensing she had a full, important audience, immediately switched her performance up a notch, launching into a terrible, calculated list of all my supposed suspicious behaviors that proved I was guilty. She spoke quickly, not pausing for breath, making sure the words hit my father hard. She brought up my recent, difficult job loss, making it sound like I was a desperate criminal with no money. She then reminded him loudly of my unpaid student loans, which were a constant, stressful burden I was working to manage, and even brought up the single, small, completely normal expensive coffee I had bought from the cafe last week, twisting it into some sign of my urgent, terrible financial desperation. Each single word she spoke felt exactly like a sharp, cold, thin knife twisting deep into the old, painful wounds left by years of her subtle manipulation. She was expertly and maliciously building a completely false, detailed case against me, piece by clever piece, right in front of my stunned father. He was usually such a smart man, but he just stood there, his face unreadable, completely unable to meet my pleading eyes. His silence was already beginning to feel like a complete betrayal, confirming his surrender to her loud, dishonest story, leaving me exposed and completely unsupported against her lies. After her loud, emotional speech was finally over, they immediately began the humiliating search of my private room. They quickly pushed past me, and I stood watching the violation, feeling completely stripped of all my dignity. They tore my entire room apart quickly and roughly while I stood frozen in the doorway, forced to watch the total destruction of my last private space. Annette loudly directed their movements with huge, theatrical sobs and sighs, making sure to sound completely distraught and utterly convinced of my guilt for my father's benefit. Check her big bags thoroughly, check every single one of her tiny drawers. Look very carefully under the mattress. I know for a fact she took it and hid it somewhere. Where else could the emerald necklace possibly be? She wailed loudly and dramatically. My father, Robert, followed her harsh, detailed directions, his movements slow and awkward, clearly hating the degrading task but completely unable to defy his weeping wife. He roughly handled my personal things with a strange, detached roughness, but he still absolutely refused to meet my eyes, even for a brief second. His refusal to look at me, his own daughter, was worse than the search itself. It showed me clearly that, deep down, he already believed her horrible lies and thought I was guilty. Every simple t-shirt pulled roughly from the drawer, every school book thrown carelessly from the shelf, was a fresh wave of crushing, terrible humiliation and profound sadness. My room was now a complete, painful mess, just like my life felt in that terrible moment, And it was all done based on one massive, terrible, cruel lie. The rough search turned up absolutely nothing, of course, because I was completely innocent of the crime. But Annette was far from finished with her awful, dramatic performance. She quickly called two trusted family friends, an older couple named Mrs. Finch and Mr. Barlow, who arrived within minutes to comfort her in her time of what she called terrible distress. With this new, bigger, more important audience gathered silently in the formal living room, Annette delivered her final, cold, terrible ultimatum. She looked directly at me, her eyes suddenly completely dry and sharp as knives, the tears suddenly gone. "Linda, either you find the honesty and return the emerald necklace to its safe spot by tomorrow morning," Annette declared, her voice now cold and frighteningly steady, "or I will be calling the local police department immediately. I will not tolerate having a common, petty thief living under my very roof, stealing my precious things and lying to me." The threat was clear, terrifying, and meant to crush me completely. She wanted me to publicly confess to a crime I did not commit, just to make her entire problem disappear quickly and quietly. My father, Robert, shifted his body uncomfortably in his leather chair, but still said absolutely nothing to defend me, confirming his complete, heartbreaking surrender to her completely false story. I felt a deep, terrible chill run down my spine. The stage was now fully set for my public destruction, and I was the designated, innocent villain in her elaborate, wicked play. That night, I retreated to my room, feeling heartbroken, completely exhausted, and crying silently into my pillow until my eyes hurt. The emotional exhaustion from the day's constant drama and crushing judgment was simply overwhelming. I lay there, staring listlessly at the thin, dark crack underneath Annette's closed bedroom door across the silent hallway, watching the thin line of light that shone brightly underneath. As I watched the door, I noticed something small, shiny, and metallic glinting very faintly in the darkness, right on the edge of the carpet, just beneath the doorframe. It must have fallen out when she slammed the door shut or kicked it accidentally. My sudden curiosity instantly completely overcame my sadness and exhaustion. I quickly wiped my wet eyes and quietly, slowly crept out of my room, moving with silent caution. I moved slowly on my hands and knees across the cold floor, reaching very carefully for the tiny, shiny object. When my cold fingers finally closed around it, I realized what it was, a ticket from a pawn shop. I quickly scurried back, held it up close to the faint light shining from the street outside the window. The ticket was dated that very morning, the exact day of the highly dramatic theft, and the description written on it clearly read, 1X emerald cut pendant, large setting, gold chain. My heart suddenly hammered against my ribs with a powerful, frantic rhythm. This single piece of paper was the first real, undeniable clue, a small, tiny crack in her perfect, wicked wall of lies. I knew I had stumbled onto the truth. I could barely manage to sleep that night, tossing and turning with the ticket clutched tightly in my hand. I was up before the sun rose, knowing I couldn't trust anyone inside the house, so I decided to act alone first. I quickly visited the address printed on the ticket the very next morning. The small pawn shop, called Golden Treasures, was crowded with dusty, unwanted items, and smelled faintly of old wood and metallic coins. I showed the small ticket to the owner, a man with a tired, kind-looking gray beard named Mr. Hawthorne. He immediately confirmed that a woman matching Annette's exact, detailed description had indeed pawned the expensive-looking emerald necklace just the day before. He even remembered the strange, rushed, and extremely nervous way she had acted, quickly counting the cash. I raced back home, grabbed my confused father, and practically dragged him back to the shop, certain this was the final, easy proof he needed. But when we arrived just a few hours later, the situation had dramatically changed completely. The owner now looked extremely nervous and confused. He claimed in a shaky, rehearsed voice that he suddenly didn't remember either me or Annette, and declared that all his recent transaction records were suddenly and mysteriously missing due to a computer glitch. My face fell instantly. She had already gotten to him and bribed him, and the absolute truth had vanished like smoke. Annette, meanwhile, was moving incredibly fast to solidify her wicked, false narrative. She knew I had tried to expose her at the pawn shop. She must have gotten a frantic phone call from the bribed owner, and she was visibly furious but hiding it well. She calmly produced a new, much more damning piece of evidence. Security camera footage from a small, discreet home camera she had placed inside the hallway leading to her room. The video clip was terrible quality. It showed a figure, blurry, indistinct, and moving quickly, but definitely with my general height and build, quickly entering her private room. The footage was time-stamped for exactly the time I knew I was far away, sitting tensely in a downtown office for a job interview. She had cleverly fabricated a full, plausible, fake timeline that placed me right at the scene of the supposed crime. She presented the blurry, low-resolution video to my father with a satisfied, slightly cold look hidden behind a facade of feigned regret. "See, Robert? She is lying about everything she said about the pawn shop." "The camera footage never lies, darling," Annette said sadly, hugging my father tightly to prevent him from looking too closely at the poor quality of the footage. I realized then that she was not just a simple liar. She was a complete, masterful, detailed planner who was perfectly setting me up for a total public downfall. Annette was not content with just the blurry video. She orchestrated a full-blown family intervention for maximum emotional impact. My stern aunt, Dorothy, and my judgmental uncle, Walter, were quickly called in, and they arrived promptly with serious, long faces, ready to lecture me with long, tiring speeches about honesty, integrity, and the sacred value of family trust. They sat me down formally in the living room, surrounding me with their silent judgment. Annette sat quietly right beside my father, weeping dramatically into a fancy silk handkerchief, sighing deeply and shaking her head every few minutes, playing the perfect, heartbroken victim. My father remained completely silent throughout the entire, awful, crushing meeting, his head bowed low, clearly accepting her version of the events as the final, absolute truth. He looked old and defeated. As I sat there, listening to the waves of judgment and moralizing from my own close relatives, watching the fake tears and manipulative sighs of my wicked stepmother, I had a sudden, terrifying realization. I was completely and utterly alone in this terrible, malicious fight. Every single person in my family circle, even the extended members, had fully bought into Annette's convincing, expertly crafted lie, and there was no one left to trust. Just as I felt the last bit of hope completely drain out of me, something totally unexpected happened that changed everything. As I was heading back up the stairs to my room after the horrible, emotional family meeting had finally ended, Annette's son from her first marriage, Leo, walked silently past me. Leo was a young man who had always been cold, distant, and completely formal toward me, often ignoring my presence entirely in the house. I was shocked and confused when he quickly and silently slipped a small, tightly folded piece of plain paper into my hand as he passed, his face totally expressionless. I quickly hurried back to my room, locked the door carefully, and unfolded the small note when I was safely inside. The handwriting was neat, clear, and urgent. It simply read, "Meet me at the main downtown library reference section. 7 p.m. sharp tonight. I know things about her that you desperately need to know. Do not be late, and do not tell anyone." My heart pounded hard against my ribs with a sudden burst of new, nervous energy. I had no idea what Leo meant, but the urgency in his note and the silent, risky offer of help felt exactly like the only ray of bright light cutting through my dark, suffocating world of lies. I decided immediately that I had to risk everything and trust him completely. I met Leo at the agreed-upon time and place, finding him waiting patiently and seriously in the darkest, most secluded corner of the library's quiet reference section, surrounded by tall, dusty bookshelves. He didn't waste a single second on pleasantries or small talk. He immediately pulled out a stack of financial papers from his backpack and spread them out quickly on the reading table. They were detailed bank statements and credit reports, and they were completely shocking to look at. Annette had massive, overwhelming gambling debts, totaling tens of thousands of dollars owed to shady online casinos and various loan sharks. "She has done this terrible, desperate thing before, Linda," he confessed to me in a low, tight, urgent whisper, his eyes scanning the room nervously. His face was filled with a terrible mix of shame, anger, and pity. "She once sold my own father's expensive, irreplaceable vintage watch just to cover her losses. She was completely broke and desperate then, exactly like she is now. She desperately needs a huge amount of quick money and needs a perfect, believable, easy scapegoat to hide her crimes from your father, Robert. Leo then carefully explained that he had instantly suspected her the moment she screamed dramatically about the necklace. He knew her exact patterns perfectly. He was giving me an ally, and with it a massive, huge piece of the true puzzle. The damning information Leo provided gave me a huge, sudden surge of energy, anger, and fierce determination to fight back. But the conspiracy went much deeper than just Annette and her debts. While quietly investigating Annette's personal computer later that week, Leo found a huge, sickening stash of completely deleted messages hidden in a secret folder. They were communications between Annette and my own supposed best friend, a girl named Naomi, and they were coordinating everything. I felt physically sick as I read through the messages, my hands shaking with disbelief and betrayal. The text clearly showed they were actively, maliciously coordinating the entire, cruel frame-up. Naomi, my supposed lifelong friend, was providing Annette with every small, private detail about my personal schedule, my exact movements, and my daily, predictable habits. She was the one who specifically told Annette exactly when I was going to be across town for that job interview, giving Annette the perfect, clear alibi for the fake camera footage timestamp. Naomi's calculated betrayal felt almost worse than Annette's open, predictable hatred. The two of them were working together, completely determined to destroy my reputation and my life for their own selfish, wicked, horrible reasons. The sheer, cold depth of the conspiracy was absolutely staggering. We continued digging tirelessly, driven by a new, cold determination that replaced my former sadness. I immediately gave Leo the exact date and the precise address of the pawn shop owner, Mr. Hawthorne. Leo then managed, through a complex technical maneuver, to find security camera footage from a small cafe located right near the pawn shop, taken early on the morning after I had visited with my father. The video quality was grainy but clear enough to be devastating. It showed my best friend Naomi meeting secretly and quickly with the visibly nervous pawn shop owner. She was wearing a large hat and sunglasses, but her movements were unmistakable. She handed him a thick, clear plastic envelope absolutely stuffed with cash. The video clearly showed her paying him off to completely change his story and immediately forget everything he had told me. She then patted his shoulder firmly, as if giving him a final, strict, non-negotiable instruction to stay quiet. The visual proof of both women's deep betrayal was now captured on silent, indisputable video evidence. Naomi, who I had trusted since we were children, was a willing, paid participant in the cruel, calculated conspiracy to completely ruin my life. There were no more tears left to cry for the lost friendship, just a cold, hard resolve to expose her truth. The conspiracy was now obviously much bigger than just a simple, single stolen necklace. Leo and I both knew we desperately needed absolutely concrete, undeniable proof of their ongoing criminal conspiracy that would be strong enough to stand up firmly in a real court of law and convince my skeptical father. We decided that the only way to beat them was to fight fire with fire and use their own tactics, secret cameras, against them. Leo, who was incredibly talented at hiding things and setting up tech, helped me to quietly purchase a series of tiny, high-definition, extremely well-hidden cameras. They were the size of a dime. We strategically placed them in the most common, frequently used areas of the house. The kitchen where they often met, the formal living room where the family meetings were held, and the main hallway that connected everything. We worked quickly, late at night, moving like quiet, careful ghosts through the dark house. The tiny, silent, unblinking eyes of the cameras were now watching and waiting, ready to record their every single move and every casual word. We were building an invisible, high-tech trap, and they were walking right into it, completely unaware of the digital net we were slowly, carefully closing around them. It did not take long at all for the new cameras to capture the first absolutely damning piece of evidence. One evening, the living room camera caught Annette and Naomi sitting together on the couch, talking in low, familiar voices, obviously thinking they were completely safe and private in the empty house. They were drinking expensive wine and laughing loudly about how incredibly easily and quickly they had successfully manipulated my poor, trusting father, Robert. He is so gullible, isn't he? He will believe anything I say, every single tear I cry, every single sob, Annette bragged with a cold, triumphant, ugly smirk that completely transformed her face. Then she added the most shocking line of all, casually, like talking about the weather. Just like he totally, easily believed me about the silly little cancer scare last year. My jaw literally dropped open in silent, pure horror as I watched the playback with Leo. Her words were so casual, so completely cruel and calculated. The confession confirmed that they had worked together on this cruel plot, but also opened up the terrifying new possibility of a much bigger, more complex, and life-threatening deception against my father. This footage was not just about a fake necklace. It was about massive, deliberate financial fraud spanning years. The immediate priority became uncovering the full, horrible truth about the cancer scare. Leo and I quickly focused all our efforts on exposing that secret, wicked lie. We discovered that Annette had completely faked a serious, life-threatening cancer diagnosis the year before, using that huge emotional trauma and my father's deep, protective love to successfully pressure him into completely merging all his finances with hers, giving her total access to his accounts. She had ruthlessly used his love and his pity as a powerful weapon against him. The medical bills she had shown him, which were meant to document her expensive, heartbreaking, non-existent treatments, were actually expert forgeries and fake documents created by an unknown source. We found the original files, the blank templates and the finished documents, hidden deep inside a small, password-protected folder on her computer. She had used the false, life-threatening disease to gain complete, unfettered access to his wealth and total financial control. The discovery was crushing in its cruelty. It proved Annette was not just a liar and a thief, but a cold, masterful, monstrous fraudster who would stop at absolutely nothing to steal everything from my trusting, kind father, even faking a terrible, deadly illness. The plot thickened even further when we reviewed more hours of silent camera footage. The cameras revealed a third, completely unexpected, and incredibly powerful person involved in their secret, late-night planning sessions. It was Mr. Davies, my late mother's old, respected family lawyer. He was a man my father and I had trusted completely for years. I was utterly stunned into silence. He was supposed to be a trusted, respectable legal figure. The footage clearly showed him meeting secretly with Annette in the kitchen, talking in low, serious, technical tones about the inheritance situation and legal contingencies. They were speaking in legal jargon and code words, but the malicious meaning was terrifyingly clear. Mr. Davies was not just an accomplice. He was a key, central conspirator, the one with the crucial legal knowledge and the dangerous access to all of my family's financial secrets. I realized the initial necklace drama was just a small, simple smokescreen, expertly designed to discredit me quickly and quietly, so they could move on to their main, much larger and more final goal. Stealing my mother's entire inheritance, and my future from me. Working quickly and quietly through the night, Leo and I painstakingly pieced together the full, sickening details of the vast inheritance plot. I learned that Annette and Mr. Davies had been secretly working together for months, maybe even longer. Their main wicked goal was to completely and permanently discredit me, to make me look emotionally unstable, mentally crazy, and a repeat criminal, so that my father would legally disown me completely before he ever died. If I were legally removed from the picture as the primary, rightful heir, Annette would automatically inherit everything, thanks to the very specific, complex way my father's will was structured after my mother's tragic passing. The fake necklace drama, the public, false accusations, the crushing humiliation. It was all just phase one, designed to remove me physically from the house and poison my father's mind against me permanently, making him hate me. The thought of my mother's trusted lawyer actively betraying me like this was a deep, sharp, and profoundly shocking wound that I knew would take a long time to heal. The conspiracy was immense, reaching into the very heart of my family's legal and financial security. Leo, who was relentless and brilliant in his pursuit of the full, absolute truth, turned his attention to the missing emerald necklace itself, determined to find the real one. His investigation, which included searching old insurance records, revealed the second shocking truth. The priceless emerald necklace that Annette claimed was stolen was actually a high-quality, worthless fake, an imitation. The real, genuine family heirloom, which was worth a massive life-changing amount of money, had been expertly replaced years ago. It turned out that Mr. Davies, my mother's lawyer, had orchestrated the complex switch soon after my mother's death, using his total legal access to the safe and the estate documents to pull off the long-term, intricate fraud. The dramatic theft was just a convenient cover-up for the replacement he had committed years ago. Annette didn't want the real necklace. She just needed the public drama to finally discredit me. This revealed the sheer depth of Mr. Davies's long-term betrayal and his quiet, terrifying control over my father's entire estate. We continued watching the hidden camera footage, learning more and more about the strained partnership between the corrupt lawyer and my stepmother. We discovered the shocking reason for Annette's obedience. Mr. Davies was actually secretly blackmailing her. He had somehow gotten concrete, undeniable evidence of her massive gambling addiction, including a detailed ledger of her six-figure debt and photos of her at various shady online casino sites. He was using this terrible, expensive secret as leverage to force her into actively helping him with the final stage of the inheritance scheme against me. She was utterly trapped, forced to participate in the cruel plot to disown me, simply to protect her own dirty secret from my father's knowledge. She was simultaneously a thief, a fraudster, a plotter, and now, a desperate victim of a worse blackmailer. The whole web of lies was sickeningly complex, and Mr. Davies was clearly revealed as the true, evil puppet master controlling every wicked string, using Annette as his emotional tool. The day of the final sting operation arrived quickly. We were both nervous but prepared. Just as we had predicted from the footage, Annette sneaked into my father's large home office while he was out for lunch. She quickly located the strategically planted fake documents, and during what she pretended was an accidental, innocent house-cleaning session, she sneaked them into my room. Then she staged her second, larger dramatic search, where she discovered the missing documents hidden inside a small, unused bag I owned. She immediately ran to find my father, clutching the fake documents dramatically and crying loudly that I was not just a jewelry thief, but also a financial criminal who was trying to bankrupt the family. My father looked truly defeated and heartbroken this time. His face turned ash gray with devastating sorrow, as she carefully presented the evidence of my supposed financial crimes. He finally completely believed her final, wicked, crushing lie. But as he looked away from her, the hidden cameras silently recorded Annette's sly, triumphant, cold smile right after he turned his back, confirming her complete lack of remorse. Annette was now totally ready for her final, glorious victory lap. She immediately called for a formal, large family intervention meeting, planning to use the gathering as a final, public execution of my character. This time, she invited the entire extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone, to witness what she called my forced confession and subsequent need for rehabilitation. She planned to use the heavy weight of the entire family's judgment and disappointment to absolutely crush my spirit completely, forcing me to admit to the crimes. Her plan was to force me to stand up in front of everyone and publicly admit to everything: the fake necklace theft and the fake document theft, and beg for mercy and forgiveness. This public show would permanently ruin my reputation and legally secure her full inheritance victory. Leo and I knew this was our final, only chance to turn the tables, our single, critical moment to expose the truth before it was too late. The date was set, the stage was perfectly arranged, and the oblivious audience was ready for her terrible final performance. While Annette was busy making loud, dramatic phone calls and preparing her final, tearful, hypocritical speech, Leo and I were working tirelessly in the dark safety of his bedroom. We quickly and professionally edited all the shocking footage we had collected into one devastating, chronological, easy-to-follow sequence. We had footage of Annette pawning the fake necklace, Naomi handing the thick bribe money to the shop owner, Annette laughing cruelly about the fake cancer diagnosis she used to steal money, and finally, all three conspirators, Annette, Naomi, and Mr. Davies, planning the staged inheritance theft. We had the whole wicked, complete story on one file, ready to play. As a crucial final step, we quietly contacted the local police department, providing them with a secure, digital copy of the compiled evidence, and carefully explaining the elaborate fraud and conspiracy that was about to unfold right in front of them. We asked them to wait patiently, silently, and out of sight just outside the house, ready to enter and act on our specific immediate signal. The formal family meeting began promptly at 7 o'clock. Everyone was seated formally in the living room, quiet, tense, and clearly judgmental. It started exactly as planned, with tearful, fake speeches from Annette about the great power of forgiveness, and the necessary need for me to seek rehabilitation and change my ways. Annette, Naomi, and even Mr. Davies were all there, perfectly playing their roles as the heartbroken, benevolent accusers who only wanted the best for me. My father sat heavily at the head of the room, looking utterly defeated, shameful, and deeply ashamed of me. They all looked at me with pity and cold, harsh judgment, clearly expecting me to break down and confess to everything, just as they had planned in the hidden footage. The tension in the room was almost unbearable, thick with unspoken judgment, and the crushing weight of their expectations. My palms were sweaty, but my resolve was cold and hard. When they finally formally demanded my public, emotional confession, I stood up slowly and calmly. I walked with purpose over to the large living room television set, and quickly connected my small laptop to the HDMI cable, ignoring the sudden, confused looks and quick whispers on their faces. I do have something I need to confess to all of you indeed, I said, my voice steady, clear, and surprisingly strong, cutting through the thick, tense silence. I looked directly at Annette, meeting her eyes, then at Naomi, and finally at the stoic Mr. Davies. They all looked nervous now, but still confident in their collective power. I took a deep, final breath before the explosion began. I have discovered who the real thieves and the real, lying criminals are in this family, and I have brought the evidence, I declared loudly. The room immediately fell into a total, shocking, deep silence, broken only by the quiet hum of the laptop preparing to play the file. I pressed the play button. The room instantly filled with the shocking, undeniable sight and sound of the complete truth. I played the edited, compiled footage, one devastating scene after another. Annette calmly pawning the fake necklace herself and taking the cash, Naomi handing the thick bribe money to the pawn shop owner to silence him, Annette laughing cruelly about the fake cancer diagnosis she used to steal money from my father, and finally, all three conspirators, Annette, Naomi, and Mr. Davies, planning the staged inheritance theft using the fake documents. The video was clear, irrefutable, and absolutely damning to their characters. The entire wicked conspiracy, stretching back years, was laid bare for the entire extended family to see, exposed completely by their own arrogant confidence and the powerful, silent lens of my hidden camera. Total, complete chaos immediately erupted throughout the entire living room. My father stared with absolute, pure, speechless horror at the television screen, his face slowly turning an unhealthy ash gray as he watched his wife's true, cruel, terrible nature being exposed for all to see. Annette screamed in a high-pitched, desperate, frantic rage, leaping up and trying frantically to attack and grab the laptop to stop the video. Naomi immediately started crying loudly, denying everything with huge, shaky sobs, even as her face was right there on the screen, accepting the bribe money. Mr. Davies, however, remained chillingly calm and detached, only grabbing his briefcase and trying silently and quickly to slip out the front door, knowing the police would be called. At that exact, critical moment, the police officers, whom Leo and I had asked to wait just outside the house, entered the house. They quickly and professionally stopped Mr. Davies and began the official process of arresting all three of the shocked, cornered conspirators. Annette, Naomi, and Mr. Davies were officially charged with multiple, very serious crimes, including organized theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, and massive financial fraud against my father. The real, original family emerald necklace, the true, genuine heirloom, was quickly and safely recovered by the police from a secure safe deposit box that was registered under Mr. Davies's name. The legal fallout was swift, complex, and overwhelmingly stressful for my father. My father and I, emotionally devastated but now finally united by the terrible, shared truth, began the incredibly slow, painful process of rebuilding our completely shattered trust and our relationship. We spent hours talking, with him finally realizing the unbelievable depth of his wife's cold betrayal, and his own blindness to the clear signs of her lies. He was heartbroken but finally seeing the clear, bright light of truth. One long, difficult year later, my life was completely and wonderfully transformed. I stood happily and confidently in my new, small, brightly lit apartment downtown, which I had paid for entirely with the profits from my successful new freelance writing business, working for clients all over the world. Leo, who had become the steadfast, brave, and loyal brother I had never had, helped me move the last few boxes into the kitchen. My father, Robert, was finally in professional therapy, actively confronting the years of painful manipulation and subtle lies that had warped his judgment. He had officially filed for divorce from Annette, and was now dating a nice, completely normal, honest woman he met at a local community center's book club. The dark, cruel nightmare was over for good. I had emerged from the trauma stronger, much wiser, more determined, and finally completely free from the complex web of lies that had trapped me for so long. The absolute truth, captured by a tiny, silent camera lens, had saved my life and family from ruin.